Good morning, everybody. Call this January 25th, 2024 meeting of the Sacramento Air Quality Management District Board to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Vice Chair Aquino.
Here.
Director Daniels. Director Desmond.
Here.
Director Frost.
Here.
Director Guerra. Director Hume.
Here.
Chair Kennedy.
Here.
Director Maple. Director Papineau.
Here.
Director Robles.
Present.
Director Cerna. Director Talamantes. Director Terry.
Here.
Director Vang. Director Vang is on the call, but she is attending as a public participant. We have quorum.
Okay, thank you. And for the record, then we have Director Aquino and Director Terry online who will be voting. Director Vang will be participating as a member of the public and not be voting or participating in the meeting. And with that, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the clerk has any announcements at this time?
Members of the public are encouraged to observe the meeting in real time at metro14live.saccounty.gov, participate in person via Zoom video or teleconference line, and by submitting written comments to boardclerk@airquality.org. Comments will be delivered to the Board of Directors. Public comments regarding matters under the jurisdiction of the Board of Directors will be acknowledged by the chairperson, distributed to the Board of Directors, and included in the record. This meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District is cablecast live without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T UVerse cable systems. This meeting is being closed captioned and will be live streamed at metro14live.saccounty.gov. Today's meeting will be repeated on Saturday, January 27th, 2024 at 2 p.m. on Channel 14.
Thank you very much. Is there any way that Metro Cable could change the view that we're seeing so we don't have to look at a 100 square foot picture of Donald Terry?
Hey, at least I didn't have to look at it.
Next item, please.
The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar.
All right. Are there any members of the board that would like to address an item on the consent calendar at this time? Hearing none, are there any members of the public? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion?
Move consent.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Director
Hume.
Thank you, and a second by Director Desmond. Please call the roll.
Vice Chair Aquino.
Aye.
Director Daniels, absent. Director Desmond.
Aye.
Director Frost.
Aye.
Director Guerra is absent. Director Hume.
Aye.
Chair Kennedy.
Aye.
Director Maple, absent. Director Papineau.
Aye.
Director Robles. Director Cerna is absent. Director Talamantes is absent. Director Terry.
Aye.
Director Vang is absent. Consent passes.
Thank you very much. That takes us to item 12.
The next item on the calendar is the discussion calendar. Item number 12, Community Air Protection Program Update, Transitioning South Sacramento Fluorine to Emission Reduction. And I have Janice Lamb-Snyder here to give a presentation.
Morning, Janice. I got you. There you go.
Okay, great. Good morning, Chair Kennedy and members of the board. My name is Janice Lamb-Snyder, and I manage the Community Air Protection Program. If you recall, back in last October, I was giving an update to the board about potentially being able to move to a community emission reduction program if we received adequate funding from the state. And so today I have some really good news on my next slides to share with you. Next slide, please. So I am happy to report that the state did provide the funding for the district to support a development of a community emission reduction plan for the South Sacramento Fluorine community. We would really like to Thank you all for your advocacy and your support. Specifically, we do also want to recognize Director Guerra, who is our regional representative on the CARB board, who's been championing this program in Sacramento, and also Director Vang for her continued advocacy at the CARB board hearings for the South Sacramento flooring community. So with that, we are going to be working with the steering committee and the community to officially move to a SERP community. And what that means is that we're also going to be reviewing community boundaries that were already set in the beginning, and also looking at expanding community membership so that we ensure that we capture the diverse voices in the community as we're evaluating community priorities. So the crux of this program is really the development of community emission reduction strategies. And that can include strategies that are under the district's authority, and also strategies that include authorities that are in local jurisdictions. And I'll have a slide to talk about what are some of the examples of that. Once we are officially designated by the California Air Resources Board, we will have a 2-year time frame to complete the SERP, and we anticipate to be officially designated a SERP community in July of 2024. In the meantime, we're working with the community to continue to build that capacity and the foundation so that we can hit the ground running in July. Next slide, please. So our steering committee members are made up of residents, people who work in the community, people who own businesses, and community organizations that represent the community. The steering committee has been working very hard to do outreach with their community, and has also developed a community survey to better understand the community's priorities, concerns, and areas of interest. Next slide, please. This slide shows a web page that our steering committee members have designed, and they update and developed and posted onto the website. And it also includes the survey that is a survey that that I just spoke about. So if you're interested, please feel free to go to the web link that is provided, and we welcome any opportunities for you to share these with your constituents as well. Next slide. So if you're wondering what type of strategies a community emission reduction plan may have, here are some examples on the slide on the different types of strategies that have been implemented across the state. And it can range from working with local businesses to ensure that they're in compliance with local permits and regulations. It also can look like zero-emission vehicle programs and infrastructure. And Mr. Lemus is going to be giving a presentation, I think after mine, to talk about what are some of the funding that we have to implement those programs. There are also strategies where we'll be working with local jurisdictions and other agency partners to develop strategies that might, evaluate rerouting truck traffic. It might look like increasing green spaces, or potentially even improving filtration systems in our schools, in our childcare centers, and community centers. Next slide, please. So this is my last slide here. And really, this is to recap some of the next steps and where there are opportunities for you all to continue to support this program. We have steering committee meetings every month, every fourth Monday of the month from 6 to 8 p.m. This month, we recently moved back to an in-person meeting with a hybrid option to increase accessibility to the community. And we continue to invite your engagement as our board members, but also your roles in local jurisdictions. As I shared in the last slide, there are potential other strategies that the district's authority will need the support from our partners. And then The steering committee, with the steering committee support, we do anticipate being officially nominated by the CARB board in their July board hearing. So that is a really good opportunity also for you all to also support us in that meeting. And then I'll just close my presentation that, really the key to success for this program is in the partnerships that we have with the community, with the local jurisdictions, with our agency, with our businesses. And so we are really looking forward to going into this process. And with that, I'll close and take any questions and comments that you may have.
Questions of the board? Okay, I have a couple questions. One is on the survey, how are we getting it out there? How are we promoting it, publicizing it? How do people know about it?
So it is posted onto the website for the Sac Clean Air website that the steering committee put together. We have also attended last week a couple of neighborhood association meetings, and I'm attending one tonight to also share that information.
Okay, and how long is the survey live? How long is it that people have to?
The steering committee hasn't put a deadline to it, so right now it's kind of an ongoing process.
And we're clearly only encouraging people who live in that area to fill it out, or?
I think there is a focused target
Yeah.
for that area, but I don't think that they're limiting to it.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? We have any public comment?
We may have public comment from Director Vang.
Hi, everyone. My apologies that I thought we could have this meeting on Zoom, so I'll make sure to check with my team on that. But I know I have 2 minutes since I'm on the public comment end. So first, I just wanted to thank Janice and the team really just for all your hard work and working with the community to get to this moment. And I think it's great that we're transitioning from a community air monitoring plan to a community emission reduction plan. Chair Kennedy, I represent, one of the AB 617 communities, and that's South Sacramento, and it's a community that historically impacted and is shaped by really historical harm, environmental exposure. So I'm really excited to see this work and the funding being able to support this transition. So really kudos to our staff, and just wanted to say thank you for all your hard work. The only comment I do have, because I'm on the comment end, is that similar to Chair Kennedy, since the survey is online, I just wanted to know if it's possible in multiple languages as well. And that's my public comment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Vang, and thank you for your work on this as well. Any other members of the public?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Would you like me to answer the question about multiple languages?
Yes.
Okay. We do have the language translated into Spanish and traditional Chinese right now, and it will be posted later this week.
Are there plans of expanding it beyond those 2 languages?
We are working with the steering committee to identify the additional languages that are needed.
Okay, because I know that, particularly Hmong in that area would be beneficial. So,
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Could I get a calendar invite for those meetings, for the steering committee meetings?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next item, please.
The next item on the agenda is the discussion calendar item number 13, Community Air Protection Incentive Programs, and I have Jaime Lemos here to give a presentation.
Good morning, Board Chair, members of the Board, Jaime Lemos, Transportation and Climate Change Division. I'm going to follow up a little with more information on the Community Air Protection Program. I'll talk a little bit about kind of the history of the program and a little bit about our funding. Next slide, please. So the Community Air Protection Program began around fiscal year 2017, and it originally was aimed at programs that really targeted mobile sources and heavy-duty transportation and infrastructure. Many of the guidelines on the Community Air Protection Program really followed the Carl Moyer Program and the Goods Movement Program. As many of you know, the Carl Moyer Program was a program that first started with our agency, so we're very familiar with the guidelines, and we're very good at putting those types of projects out. A couple of years later, it added schools and chrome plating facilities. I want to say a little bit about the school projects because it didn't just open it up to anything involving schools. It was really for the replacement of composite wood products, which we know as lab tables, air filtration systems, as Janice mentioned, zero-emission lawn and garden, and transportation like our zero-emission school buses. So we focused on the zero-emission school buses. In 2020, the Community Air Protection Program allowed stationary sources within the community emission reductions plans. And it also opened up the opportunity for stationary sources within a camp, so our community like South Sac Florin. However, there are some challenges to the stationary sources as designated as a camp. Because many of the programs, with the way that the Community Air Protection Program mirrored many of the mobile sources programs, many of the same type of guidelines were associated to the stationary sources type of programs. So for instance, cost effectiveness was very strict, and it followed the similar guidelines as a mobile source type of project. There's also upfront funding, which created an additional challenge. So we focused on the mobile source sector, which is really the largest polluting sector within our region. Next slide, please. So a little bit on our funding. For the most part, we receive about $6 million annually. You'll see that in the first year, when Community Air Protection first began, we received $3.4 million. So I want to point something out here because it was a big advocacy effort on our part and our partners. In that year, there was $250 million that was allocated by the legislature. 95% of that budget was allocated to 3 air districts. Yes. So Bay Area, South Coast, and San Joaquin. So of course, that kind of lit a fire with us. And so we began advocacy. We reached out to many of you. We reached out to our legislators and to our community partners. As you could see, the next year, $13 million. So I want to point that out because that's a testament to what we can do when we rally together and really make a fuss at the Capitol, right? The years on after, it was about $6 million, which is, I think, is really our fair share because when we talk about our community's potential to put out projects, our community's ability to accept zero-emission vehicles and accept the technology, that's kind of a fair number. And in addition, the staff that we have, that's about the right number of staff that we have to process all of our applications. So to date, we've identified over $34 million in projects. And this is all based on solicitations. We've funded or liquidated $9 million to date. And we have $25.3 million contracted. So these are contracts that we're waiting to either have a vehicle delivered or for construction to finish. And then once that finishes, then the funding gets liquidated. Many of those projects are zero-emission trucks, medium-duty and heavy-duty, and school buses and infrastructure. Next slide, please. Actually, sorry, would you go back again? I forgot to mention that for this year, we did get another $6.1 million that we just signed a few months ago. Next slide, please. Many of you have been tracking the governor's budget, and the governor is committed to the 24-25 budget. And so we still see $195 million for incentives and for projects. We see another $50 million for implementation and operations. The $50 million is for what Ms. Janice Lamb-Snyder was talking about, for the implementation of SERPs. And so the $195 is for project development. So I want to make sure that is clear. And then there's also another $5 million in community air grants. Next slide, please.
The process of contracting projects in the Community Air Protection Incentive Program is heavily reliant on community involvement. This ensures funding supports community priorities.
Sorry. So anyways, the next slide is about community outreach. And so the process of contracting projects for the Community Air Protection Program is heavily reliant on community involvement. The community involvement piggybacks on the steering committee process.
Projects in the Community Air Protection Incentive Program is heavily reliant
I'm not
on
sure how that
community
got
involvement.
embedded in there.
This ensures funding supports community prioritized projects. Our goal at the Sacramento Air District and the goal of this program
Maybe next time I'll just record the entire presentation.
Can't beat them, join them.
We can skip that slide if you need to. That makes two of us.
Let's just do it the old-fashioned way.
All right. So as Ms. Janice Lamb Snyder already mentioned, so we work with the community, we work with the steering committee, and we work with many of our CBOs within our communities to find out what the priorities are within our community. And that's important because we have to match the community air protection guidelines with community priorities to really develop the projects that we need to put out in our community. So we create a solicitation with all of that feedback. In addition to that, we look at many of the community organizations' reports, like Valley Vision's equity and jobs reports. We look at SMUD, Sustainable Communities Map, priorities, the city and the counties. And so we take all of that data and we work with the steering committee to ensure that when we put a solicitation out for the community, it catches the priorities for the community. And as many of you already know, those priorities are heavy-duty trucks, infrastructure, and school buses. And so those are all of the projects that are captured within our solicitation. In addition to going out to community and talking to the steering committee, we put out many surveys. Many of the surveys are shared within the community organizations, and that's one of the ways that we get feedback, on top of going to many events as well. Let's change the slide.
I was waiting for the director to say that's what he did, but
See, back in the day, Sergio.
So the Community Air Protection Program has a few targets, right? It has to target underserved communities by reducing toxic air contaminants. It has to provide new and reliable equipment to organizations and businesses within those communities. And it also has to stimulate economic growth. And part of that growth is also workforce development. It also pushing zero-emission technology. So a lot of the zero-emission technology that you see, whether it be battery electric or hydrogen, that's the technology that the California Air Resources Board is focused on having the Community Air Protection Program advance forward in our communities. And we've been very good at deploying some of these projects. As many of you know, we have the Pepsi Tesla trucks and the megawatt chargers, electric school buses with school chargers in many of the school districts, and electric infrastructure in our mobility hubs. And the next slide. And so there you see many of the projects we just mentioned. And so the last participant on that slide is South Goat Recreation and Park Districts, and so we're also working with them on putting infrastructure and lawn and garden. So as you could see, even though the Community Air Protection Program really does focus on innovative transportation, we collect a lot of data from the community, we pair that up with the guidelines, we pair that up with community priorities, and these are the types of projects that the community is saying that is necessary in their communities to reduce air pollution. Big rigs, electric school buses, mobility, and mobility we target with either our car share program and EVSE, and then also now the lawn and garden. And so there'll be more on the lawn and garden this year as we begin developing more lawn and garden programs. And that's the end of that presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Comments? Hearing none, seeing none, is there any member of the public that would like to address the board at this time on this item? Seeing and hearing none, thank you very much. And as they say on Southwest, I may never let them see you sweat. Well done. Next item, please.
The next item on the agenda is the Air Pollution Control Officer Report. Our Executive Officer, Alberto Ayala, is unable to be here today. In his place, we have Jaime Lemos giving the presentation.
Thank you. And after that recording, we should have had our director just record the APCO report, right?
Are you sure it's not embedded in the PowerPoint?
So for 2023, we focused on, next slide, please. We focused on a lot of agency accomplishments, so we'll be sharing out on a few. Our communications office put out this really nice flyer that is in the board packet, and then after this board meeting, will be shared out publicly. And so this is the 2023 agency accomplishments, and as you can see, there's quite a few on here. And so these are some of the main highlights. So we invite you to take a look at the material included in your board packet and help us distribute, help us share out on some of these accomplishments. Many in our community, as you already know the Sacramento Air District because of Check Before You Burn or Spare the Air, but they don't get to see a lot of these accomplishments and a lot of the work that we've done throughout the year in all of the communities. In 2023, we focused on key areas such as advancing equity and protecting public health. We worked on reducing climate pollution, and we advanced zero-emission technology. Next slide, please. In 2024, we're going to continue on some of these priorities. And so we're going to be working on the climate pollution as the lead for the 7-county MSA on the climate pollution reduction grant. And so we'll have our staff coming back in March to give a full presentation on CPRG. Also, as you heard from Ms. Janice Lamb-Snyder and myself, the Community Air Protection Program is going to continue to be a focus as we transition from a camp to a CERP. So this is going to be very important for all of us because it's going to take a lot of advocacy, it's going to take a lot of project building with local jurisdictions, with community members, and community organizations. Next week, EPA will be releasing the new PM and ozone standards, and we know that it will mean something for our region. And we'll have to figure out what that type of impact is going to be. So again, our agency is going to take the lead on this and have to evaluate and develop an air quality plan for our region. And finally, as we continue to grow our network, or in 2024, we'll continue to grow our network and focus on collaborations and partnerships. And we already have a great relationship with the 4 agencies, SAC-RT, SACOG, SMUD, and our agency, but we'll continue on with other partnerships in the region. Next slide, please. As you're aware, our building is up for sale. And so we've listed the building early or late last year, and even during the holidays, but we did have a lot of interest. So even during the holidays, we were hosting some tours of the building, and so there seems to be some interested parties. And just as of yesterday, it looks like we've received an offer, so we'll be taking a look at that to see what that really means for us. And so also the search is underway for a new facility. So we have to ensure that we don't sell the building and don't end up without offices or anything. And so we're waiting for the real estate agent to provide a short list of relocation opportunities very soon. And then last note on here is that WellSpace, our current tenant, is fully vacating in April of 2024. Next slide. And on this slide, I'm going to pass this over to Director Mark Lautzenheiser, who will speak on the PM 2.5 standards.
Good morning, Chair Kennedy, members of the board. Mark Lautzenheiser, Director of Monitoring, Planning, and Rules. This is just a quick update. Alberto actually spoke to the board as part of his APCO report in October on that federal EPA is looking at lowering the annual PM 2.5 concentration. Just as quick frame of reference, we have both an annual PM 2.5 standard. There's also the daily. So usually you hear us more often talking about the daily, but the annual is also very important. The current level is 12 micrograms per cubic meter on an annual average basis. EPA has been considering and taking comments for the past several months on considering between 9 and 10. That is the yellow bar on this graph. And then the blue line, and then more importantly, the dotted line shows where we're at now with and without wildfires, just to give everyone a frame of reference. We are now hearing that EPA will be doing the official release of the information next week. The district is positioned with communication outreach material that we'll be sharing both with media, and to the extent that your offices are interested in it, we will have flyers, information ready, both positioning where we're at and just what we feel our next steps as an air district will be with the new standard that is released by EPA. And I'm happy to take any questions that the board or the public may have.
Any questions? Thank you, Mark.
And that concludes the APCO report.
Okay, any questions from the board? Do we have any public comment? Okay, I just have a couple of things. You mentioned as far as our accomplishments, and that's going to go live as far as the brochure or whatever. This is nothing to be handled like immediately, but in our thought process, as you talked about, we have Spare the Air, we have Do Not Burn Days and all of that we get out to the public and public service announcements and other mechanisms. It would also be good, because people are getting used to seeing those and hearing them. It would also be good to somewhere pepper those with some, accomplishments, and so that people understand that we're not just a regulatory agency that doesn't want you to enjoy your fireplace, but they actually see that the actions that they take is making a difference, just to keep people more engaged in ownership of this issue. The second is, I hope that you'll continue to have the real estate subcommittee engaged in the process as we go forward. And finally, I think it's kind of stunning to me to look at that last graph in which it shows that we were meeting PM 2.5 even on fire days at the current standard. So perhaps that standard does need to be changed. So that's the only comments I have. Thank you.
Yeah, on the advertising of our accomplishments, I think that's something that we've been working at, and our communications office and our administrative manager are trying to be a little more creative with how our air quality agency puts out the information, and so we'll continue to look at that, because, I think you're right. I think it does provide a better sense of what the agency does, providing incentives, providing, land use, benefits, and many of the other accomplishments and benefits that the other divisions do as well. And so that would just be good to just put that out there. And we do a lot of that advocacy ourselves, and we know that all of you do as well. So we would like that to continue.
Thank you. Okay, that takes us to, let's go right to first to the AB 1234 reports. I believe that Vice Chair Aquino has something to present.
Yes, I do. Thank you. So back in early December, I had the opportunity to join Dr. Ayala and Jaime and a small delegation from SMUD at COP28, the United Nations Climate Change Conference that was held in Dubai. So if think about any maybe conference that you've attended, and then imagine it on steroids, and you might have an idea of what we attended. So we put together kind of a little slideshow. It did have some Beatles music accompanying it, but I understand we can't do that because of copyright. So we'll just kind of play it, and maybe we'll add a little bit of commentary as we go through. So go ahead, Selena.
Sarah, you can sing in the background if you like.
No, you don't want that. Trust me. So this is our delegation, 2 board members from SMUD, their CEO, their general counsel. That is the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, all lit up at night.
Wow.
More is kind of the theme in Dubai. These are just some of the banners you see as you're walking. This is the United States kind of headquarters there. These are some of the different pavilions you see in the different zones. This is Jaime checking out a little. Well, these are going fast.
Okay, we need to get back to that.
If you want me to pause, Director Keno, just let me know.
You can pause. Actually, this one I thought was really interesting. So this is the the conference was basically divided into different zones. So the green zone is something that any member of the public can go to. You just register each day and you go, and they have different, panel discussions and vendor booths and all this kind of stuff you can go to. And then they have the blue zone, that's the one run by the United Nations, where all the formal talks and negotiations happen. But then they also, again, have these kind of displays and things. And this is something that I stumbled upon. These were pollution pods, and they had 3 different pods, and you walked into them, and they simulated the air quality in London. One was for New Delhi and one was for Beijing. And really, really not someplace you would want to live on a daily basis and have to experience some of that air. So that was a really, I thought, very effective way to show the air quality in some of these cities. So keep going. I think this is from the hydrogen summit we went to one day. This is just a example of a small little panel I went to see about education. I really tried to focus on things that I thought for me would be relatable back home. So I spent a lot of time going to things on hydrogen because that's been such a topic of conversation for the Air District. But I also went to a lot of things on education and trying to bring this back home. Jaime and Dr. Ayala are going to join me next month, and any of you are welcome to join us. I can give you the information, but we're going to go visit Folsom High and talk with the career technical education leader there. If you want to just pause for a second, Selena, and then talk to them about possibly putting in a green technology pathway, as they call it, as part of their CTE program, basically to prepare students for jobs in the green technology industry. So keep going. These are just some slides of the different blue zones and green zones. That's where all the official negotiations happened there. This is Jaime, check it out. This is actually a hydrogen company from the Bay Area that we've been in touch with since we've gotten back. Dubai at night is pretty stunning. This is Dr. Ayala getting interviewed by someone. That is the Burj Al Arab, the kind of like an 8-star, I think they call it, hotel. You can pause here for a second, Selena. This was we were joining SMUD. They signed a pledge to reach zero carbon by 2050. Their personal goal is actually 2030 at their agency, but they were the first publicly owned utility to sign this pledge. And so we joined them at this kind of little celebration. Go ahead. That's it. Again, the Burj Khalifa. This is looking down from the Burj Khalifa, which is quite amazing. I think that's it. Yeah, this is us with, I think that's the carb chair. And then just kind of some of our takeaways. I won't read it to you. You can read it on your own there, but yeah, just some of the takeaways. And then we also had some brochures that we left with folks, and these are just kind of some of the conversations that we were sharing, some of the successes of our air district with folks. And then this is my son sand surfing in the Dubai desert. He came with me at my expense, but we just figured we had to include that in case you ever get the chance to go to Dubai. You might want to do that yourself.
That's fun. I can see Director can do
Thank you, Vice Chair Aquino. Any questions? All right, are there any other AB 1234 reports at this time? No. Any ideas, comments of the board? No. Then right now we have opportunity for public comment on items not on the agenda. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the board at this time? Seeing and hearing none, we are adjourned.